Dear my colleagues, dear my students, dear my friends, I hope that you really enjoyed the second chapter of the book, and now I'm continuing with the new chapter, chapter number 3, How Languages Are Learned by Patsy Lightbown and Nina Spada. And today I'm going to talk about individual differences in second language learning. So the question is, if I will ask you, go back to your first classes while you were learning a second language, a foreign language, can you recall those first moments of your experience? You may say, well, it took a long time, so I can't remember anything. That's one of the drawbacks of the second language acquisition. So you can't vividly remember what happened those first classes if you are young foreign language learners. But nowadays in Uzbekistan worldwide we have a lot of late adult learners, those who are immigrating to different countries or thinking that they can open a business in other countries, so they need some good command of foreign language. So the question is, what are the factors that you think contributed to this success? And how do they relate to the research you have read on individual differences? Or differently, what are the factors that you think contributed to this failure? And how do they relate to the research you have read on individual differences? Okay. Difficulties determining how individual characteristics contribute to a second language acquisition. Not possible to directly observe and measure characteristics such as motivation and extroversion. And in the next slides, I'm going to explain in detail what does it mean. So positive and negative correlation. Motivation and language learning success, whether they correlate with each other or not. Most of the research, they say in a way that while successful learners have been found in general to be quite motivated, the opposite has not been found, which means that sometimes motivation cannot be a reason for failure, because unsuccessful language learners are not necessarily unmotivated. There can be another reasons, like for the lack of success. They may simply not have had sufficient opportunities for contact with the L2. For example, if you have limited resources or limited time for teaching a foreign language, so the students may be disappointed, because less exposure means less frequently communication, so they cannot actually mastermind, have a good command, and after a while the lesson will be very boring, because always you should teach a language for fun. They need to get a lot of amusement out of language classes. Look, continuing with the positive negative correlation, age of first exposure to L2 and ultimate attainment. Negative correlation. So in the slide we have a typo instead of correlation, and I wrote correction. Negative correlation, they vary in opposite directions. So like some research shows that adolescents and adults are more efficient language learners. Yes, that's true, at least in the early stages, and some adults do manage to attain native-like command of a second language. I have a lot of friends who moved their business to another countries or who immigrated to different countries, and without knowing any language, with the zero knowledge of a foreign language, now they speak as a native-like speaker. And also I know a lot of friends who went to work in South Korea at the age of, like, in the mid of 30s, beginning of 40s, and they professionally using the Korean language and different contextual domain, which means that, yeah, I mean, late adults can do a very good progressive results in a second language acquisition. The learner characteristics. So this is a very important element that you need to include into your portfolio while making a overall prediction about the second language learners. So intelligence, which is aptitude, learning styles, personality, motivation and attitude, identity and ethnic group affiliation, learner beliefs, and age. Okay, let's see them, this category individually. So aptitude components: identify and memorize new sounds, understand the function of a particular verse in sentences, figure out grammatical rules from a language samples. So it's much easier for you to distribute the language exam sheets, and they can do very good results. Remember new words. So this is all related to intelligence and aptitude. So they're very good in analyzing the language. They can see the linguistic property, and then they can easily progress. So the working memory, in that case, working memory, it's a very essential element. So working memory, and there are a lot of rules and strategies how to develop your working memory. So successful learners may not be strong in all aspects of aptitude. So there are, I mean, some of the aspects that still they could require additional support. Aptitude, predictor of success in different L2 environment. So, according to this scholar, determined learners' aptitude profile and place them in a language programs that were compatible with those profiles. So, the finding says that better results than when not matched. So the children with the strong, Leila Ranta, 2002, mentions, children with a strong language analytic ability were the most successful learners in meaning-oriented programs. So analytic ability, I mean, usually those who are very good in music, mathematics, when another part of the hemisphere of the brain really works very good. So it triggers actually analytic ability, so they can easily type of the match the meaning of the word in their mind and within the context or within the text as well. Learning styles: visual learners, kinesthetic learners, etc. So some of the learners, they are very keen to see the visual aids, and kinesthetic. So let's fly. Let's teach the verb to fly or to move or to jump, right? So that's why English or the foreign language always should be taught only for fun. That's how the kids or even the adults, they will be very type of the amused, I mean, to have such a wonderful classes. Challenge. There is a challenge. Find instructional approaches that meet the needs of learner with the variety of aptitude and learning style profiles. Good. Personality. So we have a variety of personalities, and sometimes we say that, wow, he is a very awkward, or he is a very strange, or he is a very nervous. And then we are trying to correlate personality with the language learning aptitude. Extroversion, success in language learning, it's a question. Or inhibition, less success in language learning. And anxiety, not a static trait, dynamic and dependent on specific situation. Willingness to communicate. Research doesn't show a simple relationship between personality traits and L2 learning, which means that based on personality, sometimes the school teacher, a language teacher, may overgeneralize about the success rate of his or her kids, I mean in the classroom. Yeah, he's not very talkative, He is very type of the entrenched. He is very type of the sad, etc. So they are trying to correlate between the personalities and the psycholanguage aptitude and mislead the parents as well sometimes, saying that, well, he cannot learn a language because he's not a talkative, etc. And this gentleman next to me is the famous Harvard professor Howard Gardner, and he is the founder of the multiple intelligence theory. And I met him personally in his office in Harvard University, Department of Psychology, and one of the leading professors in the world, a very famous professor who coined this theory, multiple theory of intelligence. And identity and ethnic group affiliation. So these are the scholars who made the research whether identity and ethnic group affiliation may also play important role and how it can be correlated with the language learning aptitude. So in your available time, so you may search and of course find the book and read what type of research results they obtained. Learner beliefs, preferences for different types of instruction, so form-based versus communicative approach, corrective feedback. So this is also very important. So so the teacher should explore these preferences. So what type of instruction your learners would like to have from your classroom. This is very important. Unfortunately, in a teacher-oriented or teacher-centered classrooms, sometimes we are underestimating the preferences or the wishes of the learners. You know, I mean, in the 21st century, in the era of globalization, and we are living through the industry 5.0, and even sometimes technologies, there is no technology in the classroom sometimes, and learners, they would like, I mean, to embed learning process within their smartphones or iPads or laptops. So that's the case. The learner beliefs also should play a vital role in your curriculum. Yeah, it helps learners explore their repertoire of learning strategies. And sometimes, you know, I mean, you need to create or you need to adjust, adapt new strategies for learning or teaching your classes. Age. There is a phenomenon like critical period hypothesis for LT learning. So child LT learners typically more successful than adult LT learners. Why? Because older learners may depend on more general learning skills, not as effective as innate abilities specific to language that young learners have access to. But difficult to compare older and younger learners, not just age that's different. Yeah, I mean, the young learners, they always have ambitious, right? They have energy, and they have a very passionate approach learning a language. But it doesn't mean that the late adults could go to failure at the end of the class. No, it's not true, because in previous slides I mentioned, I mean, based on the research which shows that even the late adults, they are managing to have very successful language acquisition. And support for the critical period hypothesis. So study the effect of age on mastery of LT features. So 67 highly educated immigrants, I mean those who traveled from A country to B country, and 50 native speakers. And the target language was English as a L2, which is probably it's a native speaking countries. Participants were interviewed. So results out of this experiment shows that younger learners judged to be more native-like than older learners. So this is type of the research. There is another support for the CPH, critical period hypothesis. Sometimes it says it starts with the age of 5 and it goes up to age of 9. Some research says 10 or 11. So this is period, that's what we call critical period hypothesis, when the brain becomes as a sponge and receives all this input for the a very native-like accuracy in terms of pronunciation. So there is another research made by, included 46 Chinese and Korean English as a second language learners and 23 native speakers. Again, target language is English. Anyway, the result is younger starters did better than older starters. So another proof for the CPH. Now we have another research on CPH. Again, there's participants. There like the group, 3 categories: children, adolescent, and adult LT learners. And here it's a Dutch as a second language. Probably, the experiment was in Netherlands. And anyway, the result: all the learners had initial advantage. Why? Because already they learned their mother tongue, so they have a knowledge what the language is about. But younger learners caught up over the time. Eventually, young learners surpassed older learners. That's the end of the story. Advantages for older learners. So don't be sad, though those adult learners learning a foreign language. More efficient than young learners start off faster, because they start in a very brilliant way, because they know they have a previous knowledge about their native language, and that's how they're transferring all this knowledge into L2. So they know what's the noun, verb, adjective, gerund, gender, tenses, etc. Greater metalinguistic knowledge, problem-solving skills. Yeah, adult learners, they have a very good metalinguistic knowledge. They know very good what's pragmatics, what's social linguistics, how to be very kind in a society, how to solve the problem, how to use your language in a way to persuade the others. So these are the metalinguistic, and plus grammatical knowledge or competence of a language. Young learners catch up with and surpass older learners in the naturalistic context, but not in the instructed context. Yeah, in naturalistic means when the young learners completely exposed to a foreign language, so they can watch YouTube platforms, they can watch the English movies, frequently they can spend their time next to television. But the adult learners, they're very good in classroom context, because they have a will, to learn a very good language, because they have maybe plans to emigrate and to work in foreign countries. Yes, older and younger instructed learners in Spain. Another experiment. Older learners of English as a foreign language progressed faster than younger learners on a variety of oral and written tasks. Very strange. Younger learners caught up with older learners on oral but not written tasks. You see, so younger learners very good in oral but not in a written task. Younger learners didn't surpass older learners over time, which is 9 years. Yes. So revise CPH. CPH applies, so critical period hypothesis apply only to implicit learning of abstract structures. So keep in your mind. Implicit learning is activated in a naturalistic setting with massive exposure, when people around you are native speakers or those who are communicating in that foreign language, you have a language immersion, and you have your textbooks in English, etc. Explicit learning is activated in school settings. Yes. So they are learning foreign language implicitly, playing with the neighbors' kids, reading like very elementary English books, watching English YouTube channels, etc. But while they're learning to school, now they have explicit learning. So school English teacher describes the grammar rules, etc. So therefore, the effectiveness of implicit and explicit learning mechanism is context dependent. So, which means that which one is good, which one is effective, it's all deals with the context in which those strategies are used. So the question always, at what age should second language instruction begin? So at age 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So long debated story. So it depends. It depends on the learner goals, ability to communicate and function in the language. Native-like language use not a goal for many L2 learners. Yes, late adult learners, they don't have any aim to be like a native-like. They need to be very competent and comprehensible in that language. So they need to work, earn money, and enjoy the life. Early start comes with risk, particularly for minority language learners. And that's true. Imagine if just a few people in the village speaks your native language, and your children, they are learning second language because there is no any classroom setting or input in your native language. In a very soonest time, the L2 could replace L1 and being a L1 of your children. So there is a risk, for example. Amount of time for instruction, 1 or 2 hours a week, doesn't produce advanced L2 speakers. Unfortunately, most of the classrooms of the high schools or in the remote areas, they have very limited resources in a foreign language. That's why sometimes students are really, kids are really fed up, and they're just skipping those classes, so they're not interested to learn a foreign language. Yeah, so conclusion. Now we are at the end of the presentation. Age is necessary but not sufficient for successful L2 learning, because I mentioned previously, I have a lot of friends, I know them, I mean, from different cities of Uzbekistan. They went to work to South Korea, to Japan, to Portugal, to some other countries. And after a while, like after 2 or 3 years, they had a very good command of that foreign language, you see. So there are many other factors which really should be considered. That's why second language acquisition, you may not say that it really correlates between motivation and age or learning beliefs, for example. So, which means that every individual may present different strategies. That's why, as a language teacher, you should not disregard preferences and all this analysis. And the most important, systematically and frequently, you should analyze the errors and help them to get out of fossilization. That's the end of my chapter 3. I hope to meet you very soon. Enjoy your time. Take care.